Today, we had the pleasure of meeting Holly Krack, a holistic health and embodiment coach. She's dedicated to supporting individuals on their healing journeys through integrating the mind, body, and spirit. She specializes in helping clients who use food or substances to cope with discomfort.
In this episode, we talk about the importance of reconnecting with your inner child, feeling and working through emotions in the body, and learning to surrender to the unknown. She also shares how self-love was the catalyst to embracing her authentic expression and how it taught her to live by her heart rather than her head. Enjoy this episode.
All right. Well, Holly, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So for anyone listening who isn't familiar with your work, how do you describe what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a holistic health and embodiment coach. So I feel like the best way to describe it is I support people in like deeply connecting with themselves, learning how to love and nourish themselves, mind, body, spirit. So to really learn how to have a healthy relationship with yourself, your body, and food, which I feel like so many people struggle with, collectively for women. A lot of women struggle with their relationships with body and food. And just like we all have that inner critic, that negative voice in our head. So, really helping people to come home to their hearts, come home to their wholeness, to know that they're not broken, to come home to their true authentic selves, which, ties into this podcast of like, the authentic souls, just like wanting people to really be able to come home to themselves and express themselves authentically. And I really support people in getting back in their bodies, like reconnecting with their bodies. I felt really called to become an embodiment certified coach, which is all about learning how to feel your emotions and feel those stuck emotions that get stuck in our bodies for years, which lead to like a dysregulated nervous system. So helping people connect with their bodies, feel what they need to feel, and really like integrate all parts of themselves, because a lot of the times when we're feeling emotions, they're young emotions, like younger parts of us that never got to express those emotions fully. So going back and like healing and being with their inner child, their inner teenager, feeling what they were never able to feel, so you can really be there for them. But yeah, I have a 12-week program. It's called The Journey Back Home to Self. So it's all about really learning how to come back home to yourself, where it's all of my teachings, learnings, my own journey integrated into that program, that really helped me come home to myself, because I was not always this version of me. So yeah, just really want to help people reconnect with themselves. And just, yeah, really honing in on everyone's healing and health journey is going to look so incredibly different. But I feel like I really help people find what works best for them to help them reconnect with themselves and really bring themselves back into the light, like light and love. Yeah. So that's the best way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. The first thing that came up for me is, what are some signs that maybe we have stuck emotions inside of us?
Yeah. I mean, specific, if you're struggling with like bloating or any tension in your body, like your body is always trying to communicate with you. So if you have like neck pain, if you have stomach pain, if you have a lot of the time too, like chronic illness, chronic disease, it's oftentimes like stuck emotions that may not even be yours. It's like stored trauma that gets stuck in the body that can be passed down from generation to generation to generation, because we take on the nervous systems of like our families pretty much. So it's just anytime you're having any sort of pain in your body, that's your body trying to communicate with you, hey, there's something here. What can we like maybe investigate here? And like, what are we missing? What are we not feeling right now?
Yeah. So you talk about this connection between the mind, body, spirit. So it sounds like what you're saying is it manifests in the body. It doesn't manifest last, but that's kind of where we notice it the most, or is that usually where it's going to show up first?
It definitely manifests in the body. So like any emotion that's not expressed, it will be expressed through the body. It's manifested in the body as like a pain and ache. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
manifested in the body. What the mind suppresses, the body expresses. If that like that saying is really makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's making me look at my everyday. I'm like, oh, I had that kink in my neck yesterday. Like, I wonder what that was. Also, when you're talking about like lineage and like it may not even be your trauma that you're feeling or your emotions that you're feeling, because we are made of all of the generations that came before us. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think about that all the time. Like when I'm doing my own healing work or working through trauma or anxiety, it's like understanding that, yes, what I'm feeling is valid, but a lot of the times it can be heightened because of my DNA, who I was, I don't want to say passed down from, but basically like the people that came before me and their experiences have been built on one another to bring me to who I am today. And so when I have something come up, it's like, this feels really big, and maybe it feels bigger than it really actually is because it's meant for me to process. And then it's this huge honor because at the same time, it's like, okay, if I can heal this and work through this and, grow my nervous system and all those things, like how exciting for the generations to come.
Absolutely. Yeah. And something that's so powerful is when you heal and when you feel like, because it takes one person in the family, in the lineage to actually start questioning things and to start to feel and like fully like cry, scream, yell, like express what others were unable to express. You're not only healing yourself, you're healing 7 generations that came before you and 7 generations that will come after you. So it's such powerful, powerful work. And there's this book, It Didn't Start With You, and it goes, I highly recommend that. It's by Mark Wallen. And it kind of gets you clear on like the generational patterns that have been passed down from generation to generation. And it's going to manifest different for everyone. But for me specifically, there was this need to be perfect kind of thing that has been passed down from generation to generation. This need to look perfect, be perfect, perceive a certain persona. How do you come off? Which led to a lot of anxiety. Like I feel like a lot of my family and a lot of people in my family struggled with anxiety and just this need to perceive a certain persona. And for me, that manifested for me as an eating disorder because I was like, oh, okay, like if I look a certain way, if I'm skinny enough, then I'll be worthy of love. It all comes back to like, okay, if I'm perfect, then I'll be worthy of love, and constantly striving to be this perfect version of myself, which isn't even real. There's no such thing as being perfect. We're all perfectly imperfect. But I know like for others that manifested in my family of like, needing the house, needing to, specifically like my grandma's coming to mind, like she had a house, she had a husband who was a doctor, she had kids, but she was still, not happy because she didn't get the support that she needed, like, because she had a brother who passed away when she was really young and she didn't get the support that she needed. So even though her life looked perfect, she wasn't fulfilled, it's like, and that's just passed down of like, oh, we just have to, live a certain way and just act like even if we're not happy, at least it looks good on the outside, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Totally.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back to kind of your origin story because it sounds like you've given us little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just love to know what got you into this work.
Yeah. So in college, I really struggled with an eating disorder. And even younger than that, though, like I was always very insecure. Like I never felt like I was like good enough, pretty enough, thin enough. Like I wasn't good at sports. I wasn't getting good grades. It just felt like I had like a very low self-esteem growing up. Um, and then in college, that kind of manifested into an eating disorder, like gave me that control of like, okay, I'm liked and I get attention for what I look like. So I'm going to put all of my time and focus on what I look like. So very much struggling with like my relationship with food, with binging, with restricting, with over exercising, just riddled with anxiety, had so much anxiety in college, was drinking a lot to kind of like self-soothe in that way, was just so disconnected from who I was and like such negative self-talk. But I always felt like I was here for something. I can't explain it, but like I always was like, there has to be more to life. There has to be a purpose here. And after college, I just had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. So I wasn't fulfilled in any sort of way. So at that time, I went to an intuitive medium because that's just what resonated with me. I feel like that's just like what I felt really called to. And he told me that I needed to get my self-love right. And when I got my self-love right, everything was going to fall into place for me. So he was the one, at that point, I needed direction. So he's the one who told me, I want you to look at yourself in the mirror every morning, and I want you to look at your eyes and say, I love you, or I'm learning to love you. Like, start building that connection with yourself. I want you to start meditating and journaling so you can get really clear on how you're talking to yourself, because you are your own worst enemy. You are your own biggest critic. So how can you start to get really conscious of how you talk to yourself so you can start rewiring those beliefs and like reconnecting to yourself? And he said, that's when it really became clear to me too. He's like, you have so many spirit guides, guardian angels that are guiding your way forward. Like, they're always sending you signs. Follow what lights you up and dream big. Because I had no idea what I wanted to do. So he's like, start dreaming big, start following what feels true for you. So after that session, I was like committed. I started like showing up for myself every day, doing what he told me to do. And then I kept getting the ad for the Institute of Integrative Nutrition through Sahara Rose's podcast. I was listening to her at the time, and that ad kept coming up, and I'm like, okay, I've always been interested in food and health, but in a really unhealthy way. So maybe this could help me shift it to more healthy, and like, how can I nourish my body and like figure out like how to actually like figure out what foods really do support you and how to reconnect in a more holistic way. So then I signed up for that program, which you go through so much yourself through going through that program. Like, you are your first client. I was my first client. So going through all the practices that they shared. And then I became certified as a holistic health coach in 2020. Became really like excited about creating nourishing recipes, nourishing the mind, body, spirit. So even like sitting in meditation, journaling, connecting with nature, like really started shifting in that sort of way. And then in 2023, I felt really called to this embodiment coaching program through the Highest Self Institute, which is through Sahara Rose as well. It just like, my soul was like, yes, there's something here. It's like, it's all about getting back in your body and like reconnecting to the body, because the body keeps the score. The body has the wisdom. The body holds on to everything. So learning how to like reconnect with the body and feel, which I had realized I was so dissociated from my body for years throughout this. Like, I was so dissociated from my emotions, so dissociated from my body because of my eating disorder, because of, growing up. It's like, it doesn't feel safe to feel our parents didn't know how to really cultivate emotions, because it's like we're learning how to feel our emotions now. And so I realized through that program, like, whoa, I had so many emotions that were like released through that program, and really reconnecting and like having so much love and appreciation for my body, which is new because, like, I hated my body. I was always criticizing it. I was always tearing it down. So I kind of had to go on my own journey, of course, of like learning how to love myself, and learning like through IIN, through the embodiment practice, I've done plant medicine journeys as well, which have been really powerful for me in feeling my emotions, reconnecting to my body, reconnecting to my purpose more deeply as well. So yeah, it's been a whole journey, but it's been beautiful.
So I'd love to hear, because you had this moment with the intuitive medium.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed like it kind of came out of nowhere. Did you already have kind of like a spiritual relationship with those deeper parts where you're like, oh, this seems interesting? Was that just out of the blue? Was that an intuitive hit? Like, I need to do this. What did that look like?
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by mediums. Like, I feel like I've always believed in that kind of thing. And I had a friend, Annie, who I love so much, and she had gone to him and she had such a good experience. And she's like, I feel like just try it out. And I was willing to do anything at that time. And I am very open. So I was like, okay, let me just try this out. We'll just see. And he's like a very reputable around. I was in Cincinnati. He's very reputable around that area too. Like, a lot of people go to him. So I was like just open to the experience, but everything that he said has come true. So I'm like, there's truth to it too. I'm so glad that I was open to it. I've always it felt very divinely guided, but also like my friend Annie is very into that, and I love her for that. So I feel like she supported me in like being open to that kind of thing too. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people? Because you said, he told you to dream big, to follow your purpose, to like really lean into that and to not play it small. Do you have any advice for maybe someone who's at that place where they know they want to serve, they know they want to give back to the world, but they don't know how, and they don't know what their avenue is or what their purpose is, how they can tap into that?
Yeah. Well, what I did, which I feel like it's like if money was not a thing, if it didn't matter how much money you had, if it didn't matter, what skills you had, what would you want to be doing with your time and energy? Like, and really sit and think about that. Like, if nothing else, like there were no boundaries, there were no rules, there were no regulations, what would you be doing? And really like thinking about that in a broader term. Which when I really sat and thought, it took me a couple days to like really sit with him and be like, I have no idea. When he asked me, I was like, I have no idea. And he's like, okay, you need to go and think about it. So like sitting, journaling, meditating on it, and like really feeling your way through it, not trying to think your way through it, like feel your way through it and to receive the answer,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like as you've been speaking, and it comes up, within my own life and through talking to other people, but it's also like a lot of the times you become who your younger self needed. Like you said, someone to walk you through the process of fully loving yourself, expressing your emotions. I look at what we do today and I'm like, yeah, these are conversations that I was craving so much, and learning how to embrace my authenticity and to tap into the more, spiritual side and my sensitivities and my emotions. And it's like, it's so funny how you build the spaces that you needed when you were younger.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yes, full body chills too, because I feel that. I'm like, we do become, and our biggest struggles are like and when we overcome our biggest struggles, that's how we can like serve and help other people. It's typically like feel like our lives are designed in the way of like, whatever you're struggling with, whatever you're craving, that's something that your soul is being called to overcome and create and help people get to the other side, So, and same with me, like I'm creating these communities and doing like community events. And I'm like, and about connecting to your inner child and sound healing and like intuitive readings. And I'm like, oh my God, like my younger self would have loved this, So absolutely. Yeah.
I'd love to know, and you had said that your first step for your journey was learning to love yourself. And so maybe that's the answer. But what do you feel like the first step is for people that are entering this journey that are trying to reconnect back with themselves?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, like what I do even in my program is I have like the 12-week commitment. It's like committing for 12 weeks, showing up for yourself in the way of looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm learning to love you. Cause I found that like saying I love you, like when I started doing that, I'm like, this doesn't even feel true. Like this is like, it doesn't feel true. It doesn't feel real. So starting by like, I'm learning to love you. I'm committing to showing up for you. I'm committed to getting to know you, the real you, and like just connecting with your eyes and being really aware of like how that actually feels for you. Because when you say I'm learning to love you in the mirror, like, and how you feel is a really big indicator on like where your relationship I feel like is with yourself. Cause like some people, like a lot of my clients, like they'll actually feel sick to their stomach, or they'll get emotional, or they'll start laughing because it feels really uncomfortable to look at themselves. So it's just like starting to build that connection and journaling about what came up for you, I feel like is a really beautiful way to just like connect and like, okay, that felt really uncomfortable. Why did that feel so uncomfortable for me? Because I've never looked at myself in that type of way or whatever it may be. And then also like meditating has been so incredibly powerful for me. It gets you really clear on how you're talking to yourself, learning how to sit with yourself, sit with your mind, befriend your mind, because so many of us are prisoners of our mind. So really learning how to sit with that mind. There's so many beautiful guided meditations out there. I like really recommend guided meditations at first to like really help you get into it. Or just like walking outside with music if like sitting and meditating is like way too uncomfortable, but like, or like cooking and just being very mindful when you're cooking, like just really being mindful, which meditation has just been really powerful in that sense. And also something I like to say when meditating, it's like lay down. You don't have to be sitting cross-legged on the floor. Like do it in a way that feels comfortable for you so you can actually just start getting in the habit of doing it. And then also journaling to like really get clear on how you're talking to yourself too. So it's the same thing that the intuitive medium said to me. I'm like, that's how I have all my clients start. And then we build from there. So it's just like really starting to like show up for yourself, commit to showing up for yourself every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
Mm-hmm.
what you said as far as like when you were saying that, I was like, finding a neutral place with yourself. You don't have to be like so obsessed with yourself and like, I love myself so much. Find all this positivity immediately. Because
Yeah.
even with myself, like I have so much self-love, but there are days when I look at certain characteristics that I carry and I'm like, oh, I wish you didn't do that. Or I wish you weren't like that. Or I wish you didn't look like that. Like we all have those moments. And coming back to neutrality where I'm like, it's not good or bad. It just is. And that's okay. And also sometimes I need to like step away from the mirror. Like okay, I've done enough self-reflection right now, literally. And, and like, I just need to just be neutral. Like, because I also think there's those moments where people really want you to be, which I'm all for self-love, obviously. But like you said, sometimes that can be really hard to immediately step into that place where I'm like, you're like your number one cheerleader. It's like, that's the goal for everyone. And that's me on most days. But then there's also days where it's like, being neutral is better than like the negative self-talk.
Right. And just, and self-love is the journey. It's not easy. It's so hard. It's taken me 6 years to get to this place. Like I started that 6 years ago and I'm just now at this place, like really like, whoa, like I wouldn't want to be anybody else. Like I do love who I am and I wouldn't want to be anyone else, but I still have negative self-talk. I still have those days where I'm judging myself or I'm comparing myself or I'm speaking negatively to my body. It's being conscious enough to catch it so you don't spiral. It's like having the tools so it's not spiraling for like days and days and days. It's having the tools to catch it and then come back to the neutral place. And also something is like integrating your shadow, like that shadow piece of like judging, comparison, all of it. It's like allowing it to be there. Like, oh, I hear you. I hear that you're comparing yourself to other people. You're allowed to be here. I love you. I see you. Like I get it. But then coming back to like the space of, but we're who we are and we have our own gifts and let's move forward and let's, it's like the neutrality. I do love that. It's like, but you know what I'm saying? Like integrating that shadow piece, not trying to like push it away or never have negative self-talk again. Cause we're human. We're always going to, but it's like being able to be conscious of it and like allowing it to be there, but not feeding it, not giving it power and like staying true to who you are,
Yeah. I'd love to hear you talk more about comparison. Maybe that's it. It's just looking at it, appreciating it, seeing it's there, moving on. But if you could speak more on that.
Yeah, because I think comparing is like looking at someone and thinking like wishing that you had what they had, but everyone is a mirror for you. So like when you're comparing yourself to someone else, they're just showing you the potential that you also have. So it's like when you can see that you're comparing and be like, "Oh, I love the way they speak. They speak so confidently." It's like, okay, they're showing you that you also have that same ability. So instead of comparing and like judging them or being negative in any sort of way, how about you use that as inspiration of like, ooh, okay, I know I see that within them. That means I have that within me too. So how can I see that comparison is there, appreciate it, let it be here, but then come back to like, okay, how can we start integrating that into our life and be more confident? And it's not shaming yourself for having those comparing thoughts. It's just looking at it as, okay, there's something here for me to learn. There's something here for me that like I'm craving that I want to. So how can I start to just like integrate that into my life? Because I think we can really get caught up in comparison, especially women, with our bodies, with just our personalities, who we are, our following, like all of it, it's so easy to compare, but it's just also coming back to your own unique gifts, because when you can really own who you are, you can see another person, see another woman and see the beauty in them and not feel the need to compare. I think that's also something that I'm really learning is we all have our own unique gifts that we came here to share. And the more we can appreciate other people and not feel the need to compare because we know that we have our own gifts as well, like, and celebrate what someone else has to offer, I think there's a lot of beauty and a lot of power in that as well. So that's something I'm really integrating. Like anytime I find myself comparing, I'm like, no, I love that for her. I love that for her. I love that for them. And like, I love myself too. We got our own thing going on, So let's focus on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I feel like the older I get and the more I do this work, it's like the parts of you that you once felt shame for or you were once embarrassed about or like you thought were weird or different. It's like those are the cool things that make you you. And I think that's another theme with this podcast is like everyone who's showing up as their authentic self, they're embracing those parts of them. And like you were saying earlier, it's like it's a part of your journey. It's a part of like the human experience. It's where you feel the shadows and then you illuminate them. And then oddly enough, those are the things that you need to share with the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do you guys have any ways that like you help you get yourself back from comparison in any way?
I mean, I think what you just said, like, I'm very much about shifting judgment into inspiration. So, like, if someone has something or is doing something that I desire, just really sitting with that and being clear and being like, I don't want to say tough love, but I think sometimes it's needed to kind of snap you out of it where it's like, I know you really want to victimize yourself right now, but like you said, if you're going to be really honest with the situation, most likely you're seeing this and you're inspired by it. So what's one step you can take to move closer to that reality?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
I
that.
think just catching myself before I spiral. It's like noticing yourself at that moment where you could go down the rabbit hole of just like, well, what am I doing? Like, I should be doing what they're doing. Like, you have those moments. And before it gets to that point, just kind of recognizing what's going on and being like, all right, this is okay. Like, it's okay that we're feeling this. And like looking at it, like you said, being like, all right, there's a reason you're feeling this way. It's because you want what they have. Well, how can you make that happen in your own life? So I think, yeah, just catching it at that moment, like sitting with it and then being like, all right, time to move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I also work with this woman, Julia Martin, and she was talking about how you can look at a situation and where you want to grow. And she's like, a lot of the times timesing something by 10 is easier than timesing something by 2. So it's kind of like what your intuitive, medium said to you as far as like dream big. So she's often like, yeah, you could double something or you could times it by 10. And it's like, what's the difference in that mindset? Because I know a lot of the times with comparison, it's like you look at something and they have, you know, most likely abundance in some form. And so wherever your starting point is, I know a lot of the times it's just like, it feels like you're just kind of trudging along. You're like, okay, I'm going to take the first step and then the next step and the next step. And it's like, what if you gave yourself the freedom to dream big? What would it look like? What if you gave yourself the freedom to dream as big as whatever that other person has? Like, what would be, like you said, if money didn't exist, what would be that next step? If you didn't have the self-limiting beliefs, what would you actually be doing to get to that place? So sitting with yourself, getting really honest with yourself. And then sometimes that brings up more blocks and limiting beliefs and self-doubt and all of that stuff where you have to work through that. But it's an ongoing, every single day process. Some days, some days I'm feeling really confident in my abilities, and then some days I'm like, dude, fuck this. Like, this is so hard.
Sometimes I do spiral, you know, and that's how I know it's there because I've been there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like something I talked about with this other woman too, it's like anytime that comparison or like that needing for external validation is coming in, that's a huge indicator that it's time to like shut off everything and like come back home to self. So like shut off your phone, shut off your computer. Like, what do you need to do to get yourself back in a good headspace? So maybe that is like sitting and like meditating or going for a walk outside, going for a run, getting in sort of some movement, talking with a friend. Like, what do you need to do to get back to like you? And not so much like looking at other people's lives and like that external need coming back to your internal world. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we consume so much on a daily basis. And I even notice myself because, you know, we work in social media, it's our job. And so you're on it all the time. And I definitely have those moments where you just have to be like, all right, this is just too much. This is just overload of just watching all these people and all these things. And it's almost harder when it's in such abundance. Like, it's one thing if you see one person and then you can kind of have that self-reflection moment of like, oh, this is how I'm feeling. But when it's like, you're just scrolling endlessly and you're just seeing all these things, it's like your brain almost doesn't have time to sit and process through each moment. So it's like, I agree, just turning it off and being like, all right, time to reset.
Yeah. It's like having those boundaries with social media, because social media is like a beautiful thing in getting our art out there and like meeting new people. But it can be, I think that's something I'm really learning and like really honing in on with my clients is like your phone is your biggest distraction. And like what you read, what you watch, what you consume creates your reality. And like if someone or something on social media is making you feel bad, you have the ability to unfollow that person and really setting guidelines and boundaries with your phone. Because I think we can like get really sucked in and the analogy that was coming to mind is like social media, like, is this beast. It's a beast, and we get to decide when we feed it, not the other way around. So it's like really needing to create those healthy boundaries and like log off when it's becoming like detrimental in a way, or you're self-sabotaging in some way and going down these negative loops. It's like, okay, how can we shut this off and like get out in our real life environment again?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, being very, very intentional with it and mindful with, like you said, it's a beast. I love that it is literally a beast that you can either, you can choose how you interact with it. One piece of advice that I got at some point, when you are especially in, social media as your line of work, it's like, make sure you're creating more than you're consuming.
Right.
So not just like scrolling. I saw it on TikTok, but I did see it this morning and it made me immediately get off my phone. She was like, if you're on your phone, it was either, I want to say it was, if you're on your phone for 2 to 4 hours a day in your lifetime, that accumulates to 17 years of your life that you're on your phone. And I was like, holy moly, get off right now.
Yeah,
like, it's time for me to move on. Yeah.
Yes.
Start doing something else with my time. But
yeah,
it's all, life is such a paradox, because at the same time, it's like, we wouldn't be having this conversation with you.
Right.
If
There's
we
the
didn't
light
have
and dark side to it. You know, it's like the light and dark with everything. And it's like, also what I've really been getting to is like, social media needs light. So how can we create more authentically, create more light, create more inspiration, motivation? And like when we are feeding this thing, how can we make it in a positive way, helping people uplift each other instead of like comparing and tearing each other down? You know, it's like the internet needs the light too. So yeah, it's just like finding that right balance, which is going to look different for everyone, you know?
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about your relationship with social media, because again, like you said, like we wouldn't be having this conversation if we didn't find you. So, obviously you're on there, you're promoting yourself, like you're using it as a tool, but has that always been the case, or what does that look like for you? Have you joined our Patreon subscription yet?
Our Patreon offers 2 solo bonus episodes a month, where you get an inside look at what's going on behind the scenes and in our lives, immediate access to our exclusive community where you can talk to us personally, as well as a library of episodes that are ready to binge.
This is a place for our listeners to support us directly so we can continue to make the content that you love.
Once you subscribe, send us a message so we can start chatting.
The link to join is in our description. See you on Patreon.
Yeah. So I have really big boundaries around social media. Like, and I talk to my clients, I do mental health presentations around the San Francisco area about how to support your mental health. My first thing with everyone that I share is having a morning routine that doesn't include checking your phone first thing upon waking up, because it's so habitual to just pick your phone first thing upon waking up. But what we don't realize is that is putting you in like such a triggered state, because most likely what you're going to see is something negative, urgent, or triggering. So
me this morning being like 17 years of my life. I gotta
go. Yeah. And like you just woke up and like having that blue light and like scrolling. So it's like, not only is it revving up your nervous system, but you're more likely going to be more distracted throughout the rest of the day, because you're starting your day off in like a hectic, like kind of like way. So I always say for myself, for everyone that I work with, everyone that I talk to, it's like having a morning routine that doesn't include your checking your phone. So like, even if that's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever feels good for you. But I definitely, like, I don't look at my phone at least for 2 hours after I wake up. Like I wake up around 6:30. I don't check my phone until like I have to use my guided meditation, and I typically go on a run. So like I'll listen to music, but I don't check my email, social media, anything like that until like I feel ready, which is around like 9:30. So I'm very intentional about not looking at it in the morning. And it's like I get on social media to post, to get inspiration. And then it's like I want literally nothing to do with it. Like I've gotten to this point where it's like I don't want anything else to do with this besides like really putting out things that like light me up, that feel good, that I feel good about putting out there. But I don't want to be putting my self-worth on like my work, on my following, how many comments, how many likes I get. Like I've had to go on a whole journey with that. Because I had this really specific journey where like everything comes from within, and I found myself putting so much of my validation and so much of my self-worth on my work and like my following, and how many people were liking my stuff and commenting on my stuff. And as I was going through that realization of like putting so much of my self-worth on that, my social media got hacked. And that was, and I lost it for a bit. And that was definitely like my sign from my guides from the universe of like, okay, babe, we need to detach from this for a bit. Do you still know who you are without your social media, without your work, without all of this? And I got to this place of like total neutrality of like, okay, yeah, like I actually do, like I know who I am. I love who I am. I'd be doing this work regardless if I had this social media or not. Like I really know who I am. And I kind of detached from it for a while. And then I ended up getting my account back, which was like, I feel like a sign of like, okay, we feel like you've learned your lesson. So here you go. So I had to go through like a really big journey with social media though, of like really not putting my self-worth on it at all. And, there's still times where I get discouraged of like, oh, this video didn't do well or, but it's like really needing to come back to my heart when I'm seeing this need for external validation. That's when I turn it off. And I'm like, okay, Halls, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? At least we just want to touch at least one person. Like what we say, we just want to help that one person. Let's stop focusing so much on like the external. So yeah, it's really hard though. It's really tough. We're human. We want our things to do well. We want to like put ourselves out there and be received in that way. But it's like really trying to like detach from it a bit as much as you can. And do it only from a place of like service and wanting to get the messages out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, are you in San Francisco?
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
We're in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh, I love Santa Cruz.
Yeah. I was
I love Santa Cruz.
Yeah, I was like, noted. We should meet in person. Because sometimes we interview people and they're like, on the other side of the world. And then
most people, I feel like most people we interview are like,
not
we
near
just did
us.
Australia. Like, and so how fun.
Anyway.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Eric, my husband and I have been to Santa Cruz a couple times and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it here. It's just like such a surfy, like calm, cool town. I love it.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Ohio. So like Cincinnati,
wow.
Ohio, which is my husband and I felt really called to move like a bit over 2 years ago. It was kind of like, I felt very just like in alignment needing to make this big move. And we did. And we love it out here. Yeah. In California. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Anyway, just had to touch on that.
Yes.
I'm curious on like a deeper, more esoteric level, like we're talking about, service and social media and emotional processing and healing and all of these things. I know for myself and for Danielle, like it can be a lot. Like on a soul level, I'll be looking at my human experience and I'm going to be like, this lifetime is like, I just know intuitively this lifetime is so much more intense in the good and in the, more uncomfortable than any other lifetime before that I've ever probably experienced. Because I'm just like, it's like, okay, there's healing and then there's service and then there's purpose. And then there's, things like technology, which are so beautiful if you can process, how you need to use them in an appropriate way rather than, letting it consume you. And like balancing that overwhelm and exhaustion. And so as we're talking about all of this, I'm like, I feel like you probably have also experienced that. And if so, I'd love to hear your perspective or experience.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I just really am trying to take it one day at a time because I feel like my journey has been slow and steady. Like I said, I've been on this for like 6-7 years now. It's been like slow and steady and it's been illuminated time like as I've gone on. I haven't been looking for like my next healing modality or whatever it may be. It's like it's all kind of like happened because I've surrendered and I've trusted. And I feel like the more I kind of just surrender to it and like trust, like, okay, I went through that embodiment coaching program last year. That was a huge time for me processing so many emotions. And it did, like, it was hard. Absolutely. It was so hard, but it was like, whoa, okay. Like that was like 3 months dedicated to like really like diving into inner child, inner teenager, feeling into my body. And then like now it's like, I still feel when I need to feel. And so I feel like it's like taking the pressure off and just feeling your way through everything. Like I've really tried to stop thinking my way through everything and thinking like, oh, I need to be doing this. I need to be dedicated to my purpose and I need to be healing and I need to be doing all of these things. It's like, I just kind of let it happen how it's supposed to happen. Like trusting my guides. Like it's all been very slow and steady. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But sometimes it feels overwhelming. Like, oh my God, I feel like there's so much to do. Like I feel my soul calling of like, whoa, we have so much to do. And it feels like my soul, our souls have been preparing for this lifetime for lifetimes, because this is the lifetime we end generational trauma, we end generational patterns, we start the new way of being. But it's like, there's so many systems in our society that need to change. There's so many people that need to learn to love themselves, to like come home to themselves. It feels like massive, monumental. And when I really get wrapped in that, I'm like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. But then I'm like, let's take a breath and like breathe. And what do we need to get done today? It's like just taking it day by day. Cause yeah, I feel like a lot of us have this like soul feeling of like, we're here to do something in this lifetime. We're here to break patterns, generational cycles. We're here to serve. And it's like, it just can feel overwhelming, but it's like day by day and trusting it's all unfolding in divine timing, how it's supposed to, you know?
Yeah, that energy of trust and surrender, I feel like it's such a day by day journey. Sometimes that feels so easy, and sometimes that feels like the hardest thing in the world. Can you give some advice on like those moments where you're really just like holding on to things so tight and you're feeling the need to control and you need to just let go and surrender?
Yeah.
Any tips or tricks or
Yeah. I feel like right now I'm in that period. Honestly, like Eric and I know that like our time in San Francisco is coming to a close. Like intuitively, I feel that he feels it. But it's like, I know I still want to be in California. Like I'm like, I still have like where I want to go, but then there's a part of me that feels like I should go back to Ohio and be with my family. And right now I am in complete surrender and trust mode. And I'm like, okay, because Eric's looking for different jobs around the area. And I trust, just how I trusted with moving to San Francisco. It's like, I trust where Eric gets a job is like where we're supposed to go. But right now it's really uncomfortable because it's like, I know we're meant to leave. I have no idea what our future looks like though. I have no idea where we're going. And when I get caught up in the like, oh my God, like the anxiety of like, okay, where are we going to go? Like, I want to control. I want to know the answers. I want to know where we're going to move. I want to know when we can settle down. I want to know like what I'm going to be doing. It's like just breathing and coming back to my center and like asking my spirit guides, my guardian angels, my higher self, like, please help me trust. Please help me surrender. Please help me be held in my surrender. I like there's like, I pull cards in the morning too. And it always like gives me like affirmations. And a lot of it has been about surrender, being held in your surrender, finding that safety in your surrender. So it's like just really breathing and like, just like, okay, I trust you guys. I surrender. Please help me to continue to trust and surrender. Like I ask my guides for help all of the time. I ask my higher self for help all of the time. And I think that's just having that faith. That faith really helps me get through. And when I'm in my mind of like wanting to control, that's when I know, okay, we need to get back in our body. We need to get out in nature. We need to like breathe and just come back to the center and come back to trust. It's like a daily thing though. But I feel like it does get easier as you build that relationship almost like with your spirit guides and your guardian angels and your higher self. It's like you see how divinely guided you have been this whole time. So like, of course they've got you, so it's just like really surrendering to that. And even like God, source, the universe, like I feel very connected to that and I feel very taken care of. So it's just like leaning into that and like really talking myself out of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, we're shifting into a whole new paradigm of life and living. And this is a part of it, is rather than, I feel like people will ask me, especially being self-employed, they'll be like, so what's your day-to-day schedule like? And I'm like, literally every single day is just completely different. I surrender to each moment. I show up intuitively where I know I need to be. I mean, like, yeah, some things are put in place where I have certain things I need to do to, to make money or to get to where I want to go. But for the most part, it's just surrendered and intuitively led and purely faith driven. Like I'm obsessed with faith recently just because I realized that it's like, for me, the biggest antidote to like anxiety or stress or worry or doubt or fear is just to lean purely into faith and just trusting, like you said, that you are on your divine path, moving the way you're supposed to be, and things will happen in divine timing, all of that. And so now I treat it like a game where I'm like, how can I like push my faith muscle a little bit more? I also heard someone talk about like, before you go to sleep every night is just like putting all of your worries on like an altar Like imagine that you're like setting all your worries aside and trusting that the universe is handling them and that things will totally work out for you, and kind of removing it from yourself and giving it back to, not giving it to the universe, but understanding that there's a divine dance happening where it's like things are all unraveling and working out better than you could have ever imagined. And sometimes things have to fall apart for new things to come in. So like you were saying, like you don't know where you're going to live yet, but like just trusting in that unknown and that in between, because it's going to work out better than you could have ever imagined. And I feel like that's so many of our lives where people want to have plans all the time. They're like, what's your 5-year plan? I don't even know what my 1-month plan is. Like, I don't know, you know?
I know. Yeah.
And learning to trust in that and finding the beauty in that. And then, life just becomes more magical that way.
Yeah. And definitely I feel too, it's like taking that aligned action, like what you know, to move forward. But I love what you said too. It's like, what I like to say is like, give it up to God, give it up to source, like give all your work. Like I give it up to you. I give it up to you. I give it up to you. Like when you are like feeling really worried. And something that I do want to say too is like, I feel like a lot of us want to be in control. Like our minds want to be in control. And it's like, feeling your way through every situation, not thinking the mind wants a 5-year plan. The soul, the body is like, no, we trust. We're going to trust. We're going to surrender to this. It's like the mind wants to control. So not so much thinking your way through life. That's where we get caught up in anxiety and worry and all of that. Getting back in the body and like feeling what feels right intuitively. And also something I want to say really quickly too is like, even during this time, I'm needing to release control, there are times where I get stuck in anxiety, and I know it's a younger part of me that is really nervous and like scared and like wants to know. And same with Eric, it's like this younger part of him that wants to control. And so it's like inner child work. That's how inner child work actually becomes so powerful too, is being able to like breathe and like see this younger part of you. And like if there is emotion like fear that wants to come up, like allowing it to be there and like crying, if like I've just like allowed myself to cry and like, okay, like I trust you guys, but I'm scared, you know, and like loving on this younger part of me too, like not bypassing my feelings. Because I think that like with spiritual bypassing, that's what's coming to mind. It's like actually allowing yourself to feel too, like feel that fear, feel that anxiety, and know it's like a younger part of you that like wants to know, you know, and like is feeling a bit scared. So like loving on them, feeling, and then coming back to the trust, you know. I just feel called to say that too, because that's been really powerful. Yeah.
It's funny how in those moments, Danielle and I, because as like all of these experiences grow on one another, and like you said, we'll forever have things come up for us where you need to work through. It's like no one's perfect, everyone's constantly evolving, and the work never stops, you know, especially when you choose this way of living, which is the most, I think it is the most like expansive way, and you know, you're really experiencing the human form in its fullest. But it's funny because once you can really identify like what you're feeling, like you said, like, oh, this is like a younger part of me that's scared, or this is like a past belief or whatever it may be, I don't fall into that like victimhood as much, because before maybe I would feel it and I would really like fall apart. And sometimes that's okay. Like sometimes I still have moments of, you know, I want to just go drive and cry and feel it. And then at some point, like once you let it out, I always, like you said, you always come back, and it's so funny. And I have to almost like smile at my mind or my human self, my soul does, my higher self does, because it's like, oh girl, like you're good. And so it's just so funny when you have those moments and you really want to, almost like your mind really wants to fall into victimhood, and you're like, please let me feel this angst. And then it's like my higher self will be like, no, you're good, you know it, you're good. And I'm like, okay. And so it's like your higher self holding your inner child's hand through the whole experience, where you have these moments of like your inner child kind of almost acting out or having these emotional outbursts. And I think that's what a lot of the inner child work is, correct? Like, you know, coming back to that person and reparenting them, or learning how to be your own parent, giving yourself the nurturing that maybe you didn't get. But I can't help but giggle sometimes when I come out of those moments, and I'm like, oh, you just needed to have a day, and that's totally fine, and you're good.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's a part of the human experience. That's what we sign up for too, to be human, to feel all of these feelings. And then we come back to our inner knowing, you know, but we have to honor our human experience and honor these younger parts and feel what we need to feel. That's a part of it too, you know? So yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to hear, with the client work that you do, if there's any kind of common threads of just experiences collectively that we're going through right now, and maybe some advice for people that are feeling that way.
Yeah. Well, specifically with my clients, I think what I really work through is learning how to love the body and to how to use food from a source of nourishment, but also finding that right balance, like not living by rigid rules or regulations. A lot of the clients that I work with struggle with emotional eating, binge eating, or restricting. And so really learning how to, and if it's not like I'm working with a lot of other women right now too that don't necessarily struggle with food, but insert social media, insert alcohol, insert drugs, insert whatever you use to dissociate from feeling. So I feel like a lot of us are moving through like really intense emotions and like moving through relationships and coming more home to ourselves. And the biggest thing that I work with people on is like not giving their power away to other things, knowing that you have everything you need within you. So when there are uncomfortable emotions that come up, when there are uncomfortable situations, things that just bring dis-ease, instead of immediately turning to food or immediately turning to social media or immediately turning to whatever it may be that you turn to, how can you sit with yourself and do some deep belly breathing to like really signal to your nervous system that you're safe, that you're not in danger, to allow yourself to feel what you need to feel in this moment. Like if you need to cry, if you need to scream, if you need to yell, and then come back to your higher self, your soul, who you are, like really like being that nurturing, loving energy to yourself, knowing that you have everything you need within you. Yeah, that's just the biggest thing that I see is a lot of people specifically that are having their spiritual awakenings, and like really feel this immense calling. I see a lot of spiritual bypassing, which is not anyone's fault. It's like, of course we don't want to feel these things. We want to just, remain high vibe and all of that. But it's like the body, the way that we heal is through the body. The way many of us are here to be like cycle breakers, like the ones that are really doing this work. The only way that we can do that is by feeling through our physical bodies, not dissociating, not being stuck up in the spiritual realm, but being here in this human experience and being in your body, loving and accepting your body, feeling what you need to feel instead of turning to other things for comfort. So that's just like a big thing that I work on with a lot of people, and like not needing this external validation, external things outside of yourself, like really learning how to be the comfort to yourself, be the love to yourself, and like accept and have compassion for yourself in any given moment. It's like when shame is coming up, when guilt is coming up, allowing it to be there, but like showing yourself so much compassion through the whole thing instead of hating yourself through it. And like knowing when you self-sabotage and all of that. It's just like really learning how to create the healthy coping mechanisms, the healthy tools to really sit with yourself and like feel, really feel, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. As you're saying all this, I'm like, there's so much coming up for me around how we're really shifting out of a place of fear collectively, like how much we all live or have lived from a place of like fear, just like lower vibrational emotions that just was our normal. And like we all want to feel love. We all want to be living from like an abundant mindset and like faith and all those things that feel really good. But to get to that place, like you said, you have to clear so much gunk out of the body and trauma and blocked emotions. And like you said, you can spiritually bypass and get there, but eventually you're going to come right back. And like, I know from my experience, I had like I don't know, what would you call it? I don't know, like just a death of like my soul. You know what I mean? Like what do people, like a dark night, that's what they call it. Like when you really crumble, like, know, and have to rebuild yourself and really learn to feel, like you said, and then reprogram those emotions and feelings with like a more productive or something that's going to be more soul aligning, or like I said, like the abundance, the love, like leaning into all of those. But it's crazy as a collective how we are all reprogramming ourselves and stepping into this new way of being and living and feeling while the world is going through so many shifts itself. So yes, it makes sense that we all feel fear or, doubt or worry or whatever it may be. So it's just crazy how it's all happening simultaneously. It's like we all feel these things coming up, and then like you have a choice where, yes, do you want to numb it? Do you want to dissociate from it? Or do you want to push through it and see what's on the other side? And what's on the other side is really like, I know we can both speak to that from that experience. It's like trust, like you want to move through to the other side because it's going to be so much better than where you are now. And you're going to be okay,
Yeah, there's so much growth in sitting in the discomfort. Like that's how you grow, is by sitting through the discomfort. And I always say, like, there's no destination for your healing journey. It's not like, oh, one day you're fully healed. The goal, I truly feel, is like being able to deeply understand your triggers. And every time you're triggered, not lashing out at the other person. Ooh, it's illuminating something within me that I need to still, maybe there's some part of me that I still need to feel and give some love to. And the biggest thing is like, not always being happy, allowing all of your emotions to be there, but allowing yourself to process them moment by moment, not suppressing them anymore, not running away from them, not dissociating, but learning how to feel the full range of emotions moment by moment. Because we're all like, even if you're healing and you're like, okay, I'm in my higher self, I'm doing the work that I need. You're still going to need to cry. You're still going to need to get angry. Like that's the human experience. So, but allowing yourself to do so and feeling safe enough to do so all the time,
Yeah. And giving yourself the space, really, I think, like I was saying earlier, we have so many distractions, so much going on. It's so easy to just, you have that moment, but then you're on to the next moment and not even looking at that. So giving yourself the space to really say, all right, there's some things coming up. What's going on? How can we work through these?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I feel like I've been embracing my anger more and and giving myself space to feel it and to say it's okay, or my sadness, or like but especially anger. Like a lot has come up around that where I'm like, no, you totally have a right to be angry about this. Like this is super valid. And validating my own feelings, and I'm like, oh, this feels so good, and letting it come up and out like you said. And then realizing that like my emotions have something to teach me. Like why am I angry? What is like the core of this emotion, and what is it here to teach me? And so since I've kind of taken on that practice, I'm like, oh, it totally makes sense. I'm like, okay, now I have so much more clarity because I felt that emotion so deeply. I let it come up. I let it be my teacher. And now I can look at it and then move forward now knowing that.
And we've talked about how women, we're not supposed to be angry. We're taught that that's not something we're really supposed to be feeling. So being like, that's okay to be angry,
Which that should make you angry.
Literally. And creating like safe containers for yourself to get out that anger. And like, there's so much, and every time you release, you're releasing physical, like you're releasing suppressed emotions from your body, which is then regulating your nervous system. It's like those emotions get stuck in the body. So each time you do that, you're releasing, which is powerful and beautiful. And feeling the anger that our ancestors, that the generations, the women that have come before us, the women that will come after us, that they were never able to feel. Like Brittany and I know you guys have Brittany on. We have hosted like anger rituals for women. It's like really feeling your anger. Your anger is sacred. And a lot of the time when you're expressing anger, it's these younger parts. It's like the inner teenager has so much fucking anger, like so much anger, so much has happened to her. And it's like giving her space to feel what she was never allowed to feel because of the shame that came along with being angry. It's like women's anger is so sacred, and creating these safe, sacred containers to get it out. Like when you get it out, we're not just feeling our own anger, it's like the collective anger for women, for what's going on in the world. It's like there's a lot to be angry about, and we need to feel. We have to feel so then we can come back to our heart spaces. So there's so much power in expressing anger. There's no shame, like the angriest people out there are the ones that have never allowed themselves to fully feel their anger. So they're spewing it on other people. But it's like giving yourself a sacred space in your home, like dedicating like an hour or like 10 minutes to just feeling your anger, screaming, getting it out. Like that's so healing for like your inner child and your inner teenager too. I've had so many emotional releases for like these younger parts of me that were so angry at people, like dimming my light, making me feel stupid, making me feel like I shouldn't use my voice. Like so many anger releases that have been so healing and like so powerful. So there's so much power in that. Yeah.
I love that.
I love that you guys talked about that. Yeah.
No, oh,
I'm like,
love
now
that.
I want to like go smash stuff in a room or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. It's so funny. It's like I was triggered and felt some type of way last week, and it's so funny because we live together and we also have male partners, and so when
wow. You guys are together a lot then.
yeah, no, it's yeah. Talk about divine surrendering to the divine plan of it all, because we're like, we didn't choose. I mean, we chose it. We said yes to it, but it just like unfolded, and we're like, okay, as far as like stepping into our true, I don't know, like our soul's true service and like what we're here to do. And honestly, it like makes everything way easier. But anyway, that being said, my partner, like he can tell when I was feeling sometimes, I'm like, you need to like, just give me some space. Like, don't try and understand. Just give me some space. And he just watching him kind of watch me. And I'm like, I just need to process. I just need to feel. I actually recorded a whole Patreon episode about what I was feeling because that is a safe space for me.
Yeah, good.
But it was really cathartic and just felt really good. So yeah, if anyone's feeling some type of way, let it out, let it come up and let it come out. I would love for you just to kind of give us some parting words as this conversation comes to an end on maybe like how you express yourself authentically, or maybe advice you would give to someone to expressing themselves authentically.
Yeah. So I feel like I just try to be me in every situation. I try to drown out the noise and connect deep enough with myself to know what my authentic expression is. So like I really try and feel my way through every situation. I don't try and like think, okay, what do people want me to say? What do they want to hear? What it actually feels true for me? What actually lights me up? It's like not needing to think my way through things, which is a really powerful gift that I learned from ayahuasca. Honestly, it was like really needing to drop out of my head into my heart and feel my way through every situation. So the more that you can connect with yourself, connect with your heart, connect with your true authentic self, the more you can speak from the heart space and not so much from the head, not so much thinking your way through everything. It's like feeling your way and feeling what feels true for you in that moment, and knowing sometimes you're going to mess up. Some people aren't going to resonate with you, and that's okay. Not everyone's supposed to resonate with you. The right people will see you and the right people will resonate with you when you are being authentic to yourself. So really just stepping more into yourself, owning your creative gifts, owning who you are, and just putting yourself out there in a way of not needing other people to like you, not needing this external validation, but because you feel like you have something to contribute and something to share, and doing it from the heart space and not from this wounded space of like needing that external validation. Yeah, just like really being heart led, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this has been such a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for your
Um,
time, for your wisdom. For
yeah.
anyone listening who wants to work with you, follow your journey, how can they do so?
Yeah, I love talking with you guys. Thank you so much for having me. But yeah, I have Instagram and TikTok. My account is at nourish_me_daily. And then I have a website, www.nourishmedaily.com, where you can book a free health consultation with me to see how I can best support you. I kind of tell you the breakdown of my program, the journey back home to self, but I have a free consultation first to see if it would be a good fit for you. So if you're interested in my program, you can go there. I also offer 1 hour inner child embodiment practices where we dive into like a specific thing that maybe you're struggling with in your life right now, and bringing that back into your body. Okay, when's the first time you remember feeling this way? Connecting to a younger part and like allowing you to feel that emotion that may be stuck in your body and moving through that, which is really powerful. So you can also book that on my website. And then Brittany and I have a podcast. It's the Multiple Truths podcast, where we dive into we're trying to get so many people's different perspectives, healing journeys, stories, people that are really boots on the ground doing advocacy work, trying to make societal changes, hearing from so many different people. So you can listen to us there. And then we also have the community. It's on this app School. It's called the Beehive. It's like a community of women and men, which I love that men are in this too, of like really coming together, learning. We do like exclusive content on there, helping people reconnect to themselves, healthy recipes, movement, and a like-minded community. A lot of women and men that are like really waking up to like feeling like their souls are here for a purpose, and feeling their emotions and all that good stuff. So we have a lot going on. But yeah, if anyone's interested in chatting, I'd love to connect. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you for your time.